This is the IOA Podcast, a space for truth, tenderness, and becoming whole, one breath at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the IOA Podcast. I am super excited to have you with us. I am your host, Dr. Malaika, and this is a space where we heal loudly and we live softly. So for those of you who may be new to the family, I want to welcome you. Pull up a chair. I want you to get comfortable. And if you've been with me since season 1, you already know how this goes. Thank you, thank you, thank you for keeping me company. Remember, I don't take it lightly that you continue to come back every week. Before we get into today's episode, I want to take a little time to go through some housekeeping because this community is growing. And remember, our goal is to grow with intention. So if the show has met you in a moment when you needed it, here's 3 quick asks that I have of you. First, I want you to hit the subscribe and follow wherever you are listening to the show. It could be Apple Podcasts, it could be Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere else where you can find podcasts. Following, honestly, is the single most powerful thing that you can do to help keep this work out there and to also help it reach the people that need it. Second, if you are on Apple Podcasts, I would like for you to leave a 5-star review with one honest sentence because reviews help new listeners decide to trust us with their time. And then thirdly, the last thing I would like for you to do is to share an episode this week with someone who has been carrying something quietly. I consider this community care in action, and we know that we're big on community care here at the IOA Podcast. Remember that all of our platforms are going to always be linked in the show notes. The Substack companion to this episode is now live by the time you hear this episode. And our paid subscribers always have access to extra goodies. And so they will be getting extended practice this week. And so more on that will be given to you at the close of the show. All right. So let's get into what we're going to be talking about this week. Last week, we talked about staying rooted when the culture that we're living in is hostile against who we are. Today, we are going to go a layer deeper into the practice that I believe holds everything together, and that's telling the truth. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to frame what we'll be talking about for this episode. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the IOA Podcast. And I want to begin with a confession that I don't think is really a confession because it's not a secret. It's just a thing many of us carry without naming. Most of us, if we're honest, are exhausted, not because of how much we are doing, but because of how much we are managing. And I want to clarify what I mean by managing. We're managing what we are able to say in certain spaces. We're managing how we look. We're managing what other people think of us. We're managing the small contradictions between the versions of ourselves that we present and the version of ourselves we actually are. The management in itself is like a full-time job, and nobody is paying us for it. We are living in a season that has made image management almost mandatory. Social media has trained us to curate. Workplaces have trained us to perform. Family systems have trained us to keep peace. Religious communities have trained us to look the part. And then we have wellness culture, which has trained us to look healed, even when we are still in the middle of the healing process. And underneath all of that training the body knows the truth. The body has not been fooled. It's keeping the receipts, it's keeping the score of every place where we have edited ourselves. So, this episode is about what happens when we put the management down. We're not going to be able to do it all at once. We're going to have to do it in ways that doesn't burn the house down. We have to be intentional. We have to do it in measured doses with the right people, safe people in the right rooms. Because truth telling, when it is done with care, is one of the most powerful nervous system interventions that we have. It's not therapy, it's not journaling, it's not confession. It is a practice of letting the gap between your inner reality and your outward expression get smaller. And as the gap gets smaller, the body quiets down. Your shoulders will drop, your jaws will loosen, the mind stops running this constant stimulation of what to say in the next room. Today, we are going to walk through 3 things. Number 1, what truth telling actually is and what it is not, because we have to be careful here. Truth telling done badly has cost. 2, the chapter in Rooted in Resilience that is titled The Voice and what it means to find the language for what is true in you is going to be the guide for this particular episode. And 3, the chapter titled The Circle is going to be the next thing we will look at, and the question of who you can tell the truth to safely is going to be an important piece at the end of this whole equation that we are going to get into. Because honest speech without worthy listeners is a different problem altogether. And I don't want to belabor that right now, but we will dig deeper into that. Let me also name something that I want us to hold throughout this episode. The reason this episode matters so much right now is that we are living in a season where lies have become a public business. It has literally become the way that we govern our country. It has become the way that people make money. Misinformation moves faster than correction. Spins move faster than truth. People are exhausted from trying to figure out what is actually real in their environment. And that type of environment causes the practice of truth telling to not just be this little thing. It makes it a huge thing. It is one of the few things that is still entirely within our control. We may not be able to fix the public information environment. We may not be able to deal with anti-intellectualism, but we can fix the inner one. We can refuse to lie to ourselves. We can refuse to perform a self that is not actually who we are. We can become, in one body, our own life, a small, faithful countercurrent to a sea of unreality that lives around us. And then we're going to walk through, I believe, a graduated process or practice that will be very helpful for you. How to tell the truth to yourself first, then to one safe person, then to the rooms that have earned the right to hear it. Truth, the way we are going to talk about it in this episode, is not a public broadcast. It is a sacred practice. It has order, it has ritual, and it most of all has discernment. So again, let's take a break and we're going to come back and we're going to begin this work by talking about what truth is and what it is not. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. And I want to get into this and not belabor what we're going to talk about because I feel like this conversation is necessary. So I want to be precise because I believe that precision, clarity is important to the journey. And I want to talk about what the word truth is and how it gets used in all of these different ways. And not all of them are actually part of healing. So, truth telling, in the way that I am using it in this episode, is the practice of bringing your inner reality into honest expression. It's not confession because confession assumes wrongdoing and you're seeking absolution. So that's not what we're talking about here. Truth telling does not do that. Truth telling is not interested in your guilt or your innocence. It is interested in the accurate naming of what actually is. So truth telling is also not oversharing because I feel like some people misconceive it to be that as well. Oversharing is a practice of dropping unprocessed material on people who did not consent to receive that information. Oversharing tends to flood the room. It tends to leave you feeling more exposed and less held. Oversharing is often a survival response. It's a way of dispelling the discomfort of the unsaid by saying everything as quickly as possible. Truth telling is the opposite of that. Truth telling is paced. It waits for the right room and the right space to begin speaking. Truth telling speaks the precise sentence, not the 17 sentences leading up to what you actually need to communicate. Truth telling is also not performance because performance is the practice of saying something true in front of an audience, but you have a purpose of being seen as truthful, not about doing the thing that is being truthful. There's a place for public truth, and we're going to talk about that too. But the practice that we are building today is private first, because the truth that you can't tell yourself, you can't tell anyone else. And the truth that is performed before it has been integrated into who you are tends to become a brand instead of a self. And one thing I want to leave us with before we get a little bit deeper is that truth telling is not the same as venting. Venting has its place. Venting is a release valve of all the pressure that you've been holding. But venting tends to circle the same complaint over and over and over again without moving toward integration. Truth telling moves us forward. Truth telling names. Truth telling lets the named thing change shape. And that is important. So if truth telling is not confession, it's not oversharing, it's not performance, it's not venting, then I'm sure your question is, well, what is it? Truth telling is the practice of letting your language catch up with your experience. Most of us, by the time we are adults, we have a backlog. And by backlog, I mean we have a backlog of feelings that we did not name when they happened. And a lot of this, and I'll just speak from Black culture, is because of the way as children, we are conditioned when it comes to being able to speak. We will have a backlog of the conversations that we were not allowed to have. We'll have a backlog of decisions that we made for reasons that we really didn't get an opportunity to say out loud. That backlog lives in our body. The truth telling practice is the practice of slowly, gently working through that backlog so that the body doesn't have to hold it forever. Here's what truth telling looks like in real life. It looks like saying out loud to yourself in the car, on the way home, I am not actually okay with how that meeting went. And pretending I was is what has been making me sick this week. It looks like writing in your journal, I have been telling everyone I love this job. And the truth is, I'm bored. And I've been bored for 2 years. And I'm scared of what it means if I admit this out loud. It looks like saying to your therapist, I have been smiling through Sunday dinner with my family for 15 years. And there's something I have never said out loud. And I think it is time. Truth telling is the practice of the said, because the unsaid is that swamp that we, lung ourselves through, right? The said is the path that's going to get us through that swamp. So listen, I want to name something tender here that I think is important for a lot of us, that the truth telling was punished early in us. And that was what I was hinting to from a cultural standpoint. We were told to be quiet. We were told that the truth was rude. We were told that what we noticed was not happening. We were told that what we felt was wrong. So that truth muscle in us kind of atrophied. And we're learning now to live 1 inch to the left of what we actually thought or felt in moments. We learned to make our face match the room instead of what we were experiencing. If that is your history, the practice of truth telling is not casual. It is going to be recovery for you. It is a practice of trusting that your perception is real, that what you notice counts, and that your inner reality is allowed to exist out loud in the way that it needs to do so. So I want you to go slow, because this muscle has been quiet in you for such a long time. While it is still there, it's still working. It's going to need some care and reps to get it to where it needs to be. And I want you to think about that muscle. The first few times you tell yourself the truth, it might feel kind of destabilizing and disorienting. It might bring up some grief about all the years that you spent not telling it. It might bring up anger at the people who taught you to silence yourself. It might bring up fear about what your life could look like if you actually lived from this space. All of that is a normal part of this process. All of it is the body basically adjusting to a new posture that it doesn't feel comfortable in yet. You're not undoing your life, but what you are doing is coming into a more honest relationship with your life than you had before. So I want you to stay. I want you to breathe. The disorientation that you're feeling is only temporary. What will happen is this new equilibrium is on the other side of that feeling. It'll make you feel steadier than how you came into it. And if you're willing to push through, you will get to the other side and feel more stable. Going to take another break, and we will be back to go a little bit deeper in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. And we are going to get into this next segment. And I just want to kind of stop and pause. If you have not already done this, and I know that we kind of did our housekeeping stuff at the top, but I think it's really important for you to know that you need to get this book, because it literally is the manual that we use for this show and for the work that we are doing. And we are going to go into our chapter that deals with the voice, which is going to be really important to this work that we are doing, which is chapter 8. And it's about basically saying what we say and what we silence. And so it's really important to the work that we are going to do in this segment. And so I wanted to stop there and give that, not really a little plug, but really an important part of the work. You need your manual to do the work. And so it is going to be the tool that will be helpful. So I want to bring in first of those 2 chapters, like I said, the chapter on the voice. And so this chapter is about finding language for the things that have been wordless in your life. Because there's a truth here that I think we need to talk about when it comes to your inner truth. Until you have language for something, you cannot really tell it. I say this all the time with clients, that you got to be able to verbalize what is happening. And until we can get to that place, what is going on with you is something that's implicit and not explicit. And we need to get it into that explicit place where we have the language to verbalize what we are experiencing. The truth is not just sitting there fully formed for you or waiting for you to read it out loud. It kind of has to be assembled, which means that it has to be drafted, revised, said out loud, listened to, and refined. And this is the reason why language is so important to this process. This is one of the most counterintuitive parts that I think of the practice. We think of truth as a thing that we either know or we don't know. And it's either what I think or what I don't think, right? And that is not how it works. Truth is a relationship between your sensation, your feeling, your memory, your language, your perception. And all of the language part is the part that gets stuck for most of us. So we'll feel something, we'll sense it, we'll have memory of it, but we struggle with the language piece that's really important to what we are doing. So we cannot quite put into words what's happening here. So we'll either say nothing or we'll put a placeholder in it that really isn't right. And then if we're not careful, that placeholder actually becomes the official version and the actual truth is getting pushed down and it's living quietly underneath there. So here's how I work with this if I were doing this in practice with someone, and how you can work with this on your own. When you notice a sensation in the body, the tightness, that flatness, the heat, the fog, instead of moving past it, I want you to stop. Ask yourself, what is the most accurate sentence that I can write about what is happening for me right now? Write the first sentence. Then ask, is this quite it? Because what you're doing is you're interrogating what you have identified initially to make sure it's accurate to what is actually happening for you. Usually the first sentence is pretty close, but it's not exact enough. So next you will write a second sentence that basically revises the first. And if necessary, you'll do a third. By the time you get to that third or fourth attempt, you should have moved from that placeholder that we're kind of conditioned into placing and closer to something that's actually the real thing. So when we get there, the body now relaxes because the language gets accurate. And the body, again, it keeps the score. It knows what actually it is experiencing. And now the language is matching what it knows is the actual experience. So I want to give you another concrete example that I think will be tangible for you. So, for example, you're expressing that you're stressed at work. And we're sitting there, we're looking at all the different things that could be causing your stress. We could work through drafts of sentences when it comes to the stress that's induced by your workplace. Probably by the fourth or fifth draft of us working through that, you will actually say that maybe it's not stress that I'm feeling with work. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's shame because you took a job that you don't actually respect or like, but you needed it in order to afford the life that you wanted or the life that you felt you needed. And you can't let anyone know this because you feel as if it would invalidate all of the experiences of the period of time that you've been in this particular job. So let's just say the last 5 years. That sentence at the end was the one that was truth. The stress that you said you were dealing with was the placeholder. And so the moment that that real sentence is said out loud, that is when you will see your body responding to the truth being acknowledged. That is when you will see your body relax and your shoulder dropping. You'll see it happening in real time because the body has been waiting for you to give it the proper language. So your assignment this week is to find one placeholder that you have been using and to draft your way to the more accurate sentence. And I want you to pick something that's small. The thing that you say when someone asks you how you are, this is typically the default place where we will find people using placeholders. Or it could be the way you describe the current season of your life that you're in. The reason that you give for why you have not done the thing that you said you were going to do, whatever the situation may be, sit with whatever that placeholder is. And then after you sit with the placeholder, I want you to ask yourself, what is closer to true than this? And I want you to at least do a minimum of 3 drafts. And I want you to notice what is shifting as you do the revisions. Here's a piece of practical wisdom. The body tends to know the truth before the mind can catch up. So when you're drafting your sentences, check in with your body after each draft. Ask yourself, does my chest feel tighter or looser? Does my breath get shallow or is it deeper? The body in this work is the editor for you. It will tell you when you've arrived at the accurate sentence. And I want you to trust it when it does that. And I want to add one more piece to this. Your voice does not have to be eloquent. You don't have to always have the biggest and best words. The truth doesn't require you to have beautiful language. It just requires an accurate language. So your sentence could be clumsy and fumbling and put together, but it could be true 1,000 times more healing than that polished sentence that you took the time to labor over and put together, but is not quite true. So let yourself be, for lack of a better term, inelegant in this moment. Let yourself fumble through it. The fumble is actually part of the practice. It's how the body knows that you're actually trying to find the real thing instead of just performing fluency for the sake of doing so. I also want to give you one practical tool here. When you can't find language, try a sentence that begins with what is true, right? Or that you can acknowledge that you know for sure definitively that is true. All right. And then let the next words come. Right. So maybe you start with what is true is, and you identify what you think it may be in that moment. That might be how you started. And then every time you revise, you'll start to see things get to be more accurate. So even if as you're doing it, you're kind of stopping and starting, you're contradicting yourself, even if you feel like they don't sound anything like something you would say in public, then I think that that's when you're on to something. Because the public us is often edited. The private us is often more truthful. So we want to get to a place where we're saying things that is not something we would probably say in a public space. So for example, what is true is I am tired. That's where we start. What is true is I have not wanted to admit that. What is true is I am proud of what I built, and I am also done with what I have built. Now that last phrase is now giving body permission, because you go from acknowledging fatigue, you go to next acknowledging being proud of what you built, but then you also get to the point where you're acknowledging the fact that this no longer serves you and you're actually ready to move on to something different. The body is using the proper words that you give it when you finally get to that truth as permission. It's performing fluency that it didn't have when you were filtering yourself. And so as you fumble out the words and you go through that halting, stopping, and starting, what you're doing is you're slowly but surely unlocking something that your body can recognize as true. So what I want you to do is use that what is true is example structure for your sentences 3 times a day this week. See what comes after you start with that framework. Some of the sentences are going to teach you things that you didn't know you were ready to know or acknowledge. And it's also going to highlight some things that your body knew was there, but was not being spoken out loud. So let's take another break. And when we come back, we're going to get into safe spaces and the circle and understanding how to acknowledge who is worthy of hearing this truth as I speak it. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. And we're going to talk about the circle, because the second chapter that I said we were going to look into in Rooted in Resilience in this episode is directly connected to where this practice will happen and the community aspect of it. Because the truth, when it's told to the wrong person or an unworthy person, can actually do you harm. It does harm to you. It does harm to the relationship. So I want to have a talk with you about who and not just what you're saying. So we just talked about acknowledging the what. The what is the truth, right? And how do we get to verbalizing and expressing that? Now I want to talk about the spaces that you express it in. And I think that this is important. Not everyone in your life has earned the right to your truth. And I know that that sounds harsh, but I was actually having a conversation with my husband about this weekend, is that I am very guarded with how I interact with people the older that I get, because I have seen too many people not be safe spaces. And it used to be I would allow people unlimited opportunities to not be a safe space before I would get to the point where I would pull back, but I would have harmed myself immensely in that time frame. And now I'm at the place where you only have to show me once that you're not safe, and that's all it takes. And I know that probably sounds harsh of what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it because I need this to sit with you. And I know that this is awkward and it's uncomfortable, but we are almost subconsciously being conditioned or trained that we're supposed to be open and vulnerable and share and be authentic with everyone. And not everyone in your life has earned the right to your truth. Your truth is a resource. And I feel like with any resource that we have, it requires stewardship. We wouldn't just be frivolous with our money and just throw it out there in a way that has not been proven to us is a safe and effective way to use our money. So think about the same thing with your truth. Here's how I think about circles, because again, the book talks about the circle. I've had a circle gathering. You know that the circle is an important technology in wellness from the Afrocentric perspective. Imagine a series of concentric rings, right? You have them with you. It's you, it's your journal, it's your private prayers, it's the truth that you told yourself first when you did this foundational practice. Because remember, if you cannot tell yourself the truth, the other rings that I mentioned actually don't matter. That second ring is one or two people in your life who has demonstrated over time consistently that they can hold what you bring to them. Number one, they don't flinch. Two, they don't try to fix it. And this last one, I think, is the most important one. They don't weaponize it for later. And while this ring is small, I think that that ring is probably the most sacred one. The third ring, I think, is people who know you well. They trust you and can hold most of your truths, though maybe not all of them. And we have to be honest with that, knowing who can hold what truths and who cannot. The fourth ring is like friendly acquaintances, okay? These are people that get the headline version of you, of your life. They don't get the substance because, again, they have not earned that. Then the fifth ring is the public, right? Strangers, people around us, the audience. Those are also a part of this equation. I think one of the most fatal mistakes most of us make is that we either share too widely or we share too narrowly. There's a lot of extremes at play. Some of us share with everyone. So we treat the public ring like the inner ring, and we see this on social media all the time. And then we're sitting here wondering why our nervous system is always activated. It's because the public is not designed to hold us. That's not what that ring is for. Others of us share with nobody. So now we're treating the inner ring like this closed system, and we wonder why we feel so isolated. Well, the reason you feel isolated is because you are. The work is to know for each truth that you are carrying, which ring is the right ring. Some truths belong only to you. Some belong with one person. Some belong with your inner tribe, your inner circle. Some belong in the public. And this is where the discernment kicks in. Discernment about which is the right one is the most important skill of our adult healing life. So how do you build the inner ring if you do not have one yet? As I said with everything, you build it slowly. You do not invite someone into your inner ring all at once. I am big on auditioning. How do you do that? Give them small truths and notice what happens with that. Did they listen, or did they redirect it? Did they make it about themselves? Did they hold it, or did they retell it to someone else? Did they make space, or did they again put the focus on them and something else? The people who pass the small truth audition can now graduate slowly to larger truths. The people who don't, and listen, some people you love are not going to pass, they stay in a different ring. This is not a betrayal of the relationship. What I like to say is this is clarity. It's a clarification of what the relationship is. Different relationships hold different things. And here's the part I want to say carefully. Family is not automatically the inner ring. And I know your pearls are clutched. Blood does not automatically equal safety. I'm letting that one breathe because I know that that's challenging. Some of you are carrying truths that you cannot share with the people you grew up with because the people you grew up with are the source of the wound. That's not a moral failure on your part, but it is a sober assessment of who is actually safe for you to bring your truth to. That inner ring is built by behavior. It's not built by biology. People have to perform, and not in a performative way, like they're on a stage, but maybe they are in a way, figuratively, right? They are responsible for showing you consistently that they can be worthy of that space, and just being related by blood is not enough. Also, and I think that this matters, you are not obligated to maintain inner ring consistency or intimacy with people just because you used to have it. The people change rings. So sometimes they earn their way in and sometimes they will earn their way out. And that is part of being alive in a long life. The circles are not one-time decisions. They're a continual practice of discernment that you need to do. And I personally have gone through that in relationships that I've had for a long time, where we had to look at the circle that they started in and the circle where they needed to be in this current stage of my life. So the circle is not a fence. It is a discernment. It is a practice of asking, before I say this next thing, is this person able to hold this? And if not, where does this sentence belong instead? Who should I be saying this to? Should I be saying it to my journal? Should I be saying it to my therapist? Should I say it to that one cousin that I have? Should I be saying it to the friend who has always shown up for me, or my chosen sister, right? Not the sister by blood, but the person that you chose in sisterhood. The circle is a love letter to you. What you are saying is, I will not pour into vessels that do not have the capacity to hold me. Let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about graduating in truth telling. And I'm going to give you the practice of what that looks like. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back. And I want to get into the practice of how to do this. And because all of this that I've given you so far is theory, but the theory is meaningless without you understanding how to actually do this. And so I'm going to call this graduated truth telling. And there's 3 layers to this. You move through them in order and you don't want to skip through them. So here's the first layer. Tell yourself the truth first. It always starts with you. This is a non-negotiable. Before you tell anyone else anything, you say it to yourself out loud or on paper until you can hear it from yourself without flinching. So I want you to pick one truth that you have been managing. I want you to write it down. I want you to read it back. And I want you to notice what happens in your body. Sit with it for at least 3 days before you do anything else. The truth needs to live in you, and it needs to be able to do so fully before you can hand it off to someone else. Layer number 2, tell one safe person. So choose the person from your inner ring. And if you do not have an inner ring yet, and you have a therapist or a life coach or someone that you can go to that is a safe space, then bring it to them. That conversation doesn't have to be a long conversation. Honestly, 5 minutes is plenty of time. The point is not about how long the conversation is. The point is the witness. And your truth is being witnessed by another human. And when that happens, it moves in your body differently than just the truth being only lived with you or in your head. Witnessing is going to change the chemistry inside of you. And then the third layer is to tell the right room, if and only if you have one. This is where it gets very specific. So some truths never need to lead that second layer. They get told to you, they get told to that one person, and then that's the end of the journey for that particular truth, and that's okay. That is the whole practice. Other truths eventually need to be a wider room. So it may be your family. So in a family meeting, it could be at work, in a conversation. You may choose to post it in a public way. But you only get to layer 3 after you've done layers 1 and 2. And the third layer for me is always a question of discernment. It's not obligation. You're not obligated to give the public this information. Just because a truth could be told publicly doesn't mean it has to be, or doesn't mean that it should be. Privacy is also a healing technology. So here's the rhythm I want you to practice this week. Once a day, identify one small truth and tell it to yourself. That is layer 1. Once a week, take one truth that you've lived with in layer 1 for a while, and then tell it to one person in your inner ring. That's layer 2. Layer 3 is not necessarily on the weekly schedule. Layer 3 is going to be occasional, it's sacred, it's based on when the time is right, and only chosen when the room is ready for that truth. And the practice that holds all of this is the Aya pause. And so that's in my book. It's a concept that I have. And before you do any truth telling, you need to anchor yourself. So this will be your 3 breaths with your feet on the floor, hands on your chest, arriving in your body before you let these words leave your body. The Aya pause is going to make that truth telling practice sustainable. It keeps you from speaking from a reactive place, and it grounds you so that you can be responsive. Keeps you from saying things that you could possibly have to take back later. And so the pause is the bridge between that impulse that we often have to speak and the actual speech that needs to be done. The pause is going to be what makes the speech true instead of just loud. And truth on the other side of that pause, I believe, will be a different kind of truth. I believe it will be rooted, it will be measured, it will be unhurried, and it does not need to be convinced. You don't have to convince anyone when you get to that place. It is just true. And it's true because you said it from a rooted body, and that body has now performed truth that it never has done probably prior to this moment. That truth is going to land differently. It just simply is. And the room either receives it or it doesn't. So either way, you can walk out of the room as yourself. And I feel like that is the win here. So I want to go ahead and go directly into our close because I feel like that's a good place for us to stop. And I want to say something to whoever has been carrying a truth for a long time. The truth that you have been holding is not too heavy. It's just bigger than the rooms you have been trying to fit it into. And the reason it has not come out is that it's not there's something wrong with you. It's because you've been holding it alone and didn't have a ritual or a layered practice to use to get it out to the right witnesses. So truth, like all the sacred things that we talk about, it needs a container. And we have not always been taught how to build that container. So today in this episode, we built one. We did it together. And so here's what I want you to take again with you this week. One, that truth telling is not confession. It's not oversharing. It's not performance or venting. It is the practice of letting your language catch up with your experience. Secondly, the body knows the truth before the mind does. So let your body be the editor. The accurate sentence is the one that makes your body feel like it can breathe. And then thirdly, the circle is discernment. It's not offense. Different rings hold different truths. The inner ring is built by behavior. It's not built by biology. And then fourth, graduated truth telling. Tell yourself first, then one safe person. The third layer is optional, sacred, and only chosen when you have the discernment. And then 5, remember the eye of pause holds this whole practice together. It is the anchor before you speak because the rooted truth will carry you differently than reactive truth. So remember, the Substack companion for this episode is live. If you are not already a subscriber to the Substack community, please do that. For those of you who are paid subscribers, there will be a guided 3-draft writing practice for you to use and walk through to assist you with finding the accurate sentence about something that you've been managing. Also remember that there will be links in the show notes for any of these things if you're not sure where to go to get to the Substack community. And to the one that has been smiling through Sunday dinner for the last decade, holding a truth that needed to be verbalized, remember, we see you. To the one who has been managing the version of yourself that seems to get promoted, but it's hiding the version of yourself that is actually exhausted, I see you as well. The one who has been the keeper of everybody else's truths and has not yet been allowed to deal with your own and take up space in your own life, you are seen. Your truth is not a betrayal of the people you love. Your truth is the foundation of the relationships that are going to actually hold you. Performance protects nothing in the long run. Truth is what gives the relationship somewhere to actually stand. So remember, as we close, that if this episode has met you somewhere in your life, please remember to share it with someone and let them know that this is a safe space for them to go to on their healing journey. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do is to hand someone else permission to put words and language to what they are experiencing. Remember, subscribe, review, share. That is how this work keeps reaching the people who need it. Shout out to the WDJY listeners in Atlanta, Georgia for continuing to be with us on this journey. And next week, when we get into episode 33, we're going to talk about trauma and how to name harm honestly without collapsing your whole identity into that. Because in this season of very loud trauma language, we need a more precise practice. So we will get into context, naming, and how to hold your story, but both honestly and with dignity. So until then, I want you to remember to breathe slow, take your eye a pause, and tell yourself one small truth sentence today and let your body hear it. And that's the thing that counts. That's where it's going to start. Again, I am Dr. Malaika. This is the IOA, and we will see you next Tuesday. Have a great one. This is the IOA podcast, a space for truth, tenderness, and becoming whole, one breath at a time. Make sure to like and subscribe.